Business is simple. It's just not easy. We focus on three things to help you run and grow your business more easily: talent, sales, and how to scale. This is the Talent, Sales, and Scale Show.
Hey everyone, Bryan Whittington with this episode of the Talent, Sales, and Scale Show. Today we have Gary Mitchell from across the pond. He was posting with Marcus Cauchi, and we're talking about customer success and how people screw it up and what are the KPIs around customer success. And I said, hey, if you're such a smart guy on this, why don't we have you on the show and make us smart too? So that's how Gary landed here. So welcome to the show, Gary.
Hi there, Bryan. Nice to be with you.
Nice to have you. All right, so Gary is with HQI, right? So what's that stand for again?
Yeah, it stands for high quality interactions, which is something I believe in. You know, if we can all have higher quality interactions, then we get on well together, we understand each other, and we make progress together.
Crazy thought. If we knew how to communicate with one another, life would be a lot easier. So, all right. So, Gary, you're running HQI. You know about this stuff. Why in the world should we listen to you? What makes you such an expert on this stuff here?
Well, I always shudder when somebody calls me an expert, but I'll do my best, and I'll let you and the audience be the judge of what I can bring to the party.
Got it.
I bring a different voice. I'm not from sales or marketing or sales enablement, but I'm from a transformation background and a strategy development background. So for 30 years across Europe and the US, I've been, first I tried to rescue big transformation programs for people. So that was my core experience and where I learned about all the functions and how they join together into something like a common purpose. And latterly, I've been working with private equity-backed businesses trying to bring their senior teams together to build strategy together and really tell the story of where the value is in this business so that future investors can get excited about that. And where we all come together, where sales and transformation and strategy development comes together, is around the subject of customer success. Because ultimately, if you can make a set of customers successful, you can grow and you can actually maximize the future value of your business.
Okay, so there's an awful lot there. Now, you talked originally, you started off with rescuing transformation initiatives.
Yes.
What's the stat? It's something insane, isn't it, that how many transformation initiatives or how many initiatives actually fail? I mean, do you know the stat off of that?
Well, there's various stats. Yeah, various stats are bandied about, but more than is comfortable.
but
so a fair number.
Yeah, so quite a lot. Now, help us understand. I mean, why do those transformation initiatives not work? And then how are you tying that into customer success?
Yeah, well, the link is the following. Firstly, transformation initiatives don't work because the large ones are cross-functional.
Okay.
And customer success is cross-functional. So the tie-in, the way to rescue a large transformation program is to actually bring back all the functions onto a common focus, find the finishing line. And the finishing line usually is something to do with what kind of customer journey do we need to build to be successful, to get out of this alive, firstly, and also to create future value. So that we have to join up the functions on a common view of what it is we need to build in order to call this transformation program completed. And that is a customer experience that they can describe and is joined up, and actually customer success is part of that experience.
Interesting. So you're suggesting that if I can identify and build the right customer journey, that's going to directly tie in and be the key contributor to a successful customer success or a successful customer relationship.
Yes, I mean, the challenge on both is, well, firstly, the challenge on the customer journey is no one function owns the customer journey. So you can't find an owner. Everybody has a view right across the pitch. So marketing, sales, into deployment, into support, and account management. They all have a view. But let me ask you, or let me ask your audience, how, if I came to your business, where would I find the customer journey written down? Who's got that, right? And when I turn around big transformation programs, that's the first thing I do is break out the 3M post-its and get the functions together and say, right, when we've finished, when the IT system is in, how's it all going to work? And what happens then is actually you get real engagement, because people then have the right debate about what the end point is. And once you've got the outcomes, you can get the plan. So that's the customer journey, and that takes care of the customer experience. Now let me ask you another question about customer success. If you take the life cycle of a contract, of a B2B service or a technology, the technology product or piece of software or something, if you take the life cycle, how much investment is put by the business into the portion of that life cycle where the customer achieves success? The answer is very little. We put a lot of investment in finding customers, a lot of investment in securing customers, a lot of investment into onboarding them. And then we kind of wait and hope the phone doesn't ring.
We're waiting to be fired.
And then, yeah, and then we go back and try and renew or retain them. So actually, firstly, we don't put any investment into the portion of the contract where the customer is achieving success or not. And secondly, there is no transparency, or actually the wrong sort of transparency, where we measure customer noise or dissatisfaction. So we measure incidents, incident resolution, and complaints, right? We don't measure success at all. All this, of course, is changing because we're going to the software as a service, the SaaS world, where we want to bill on transactions. And actually, if we implement something and the customer doesn't use it, we get no money. So now we're becoming more interested in customer success, because success means more transactions, which means we actually get paid. So the world is changing, and this is why we're here talking about customer success, really, because the world's changing to a transaction-based revenue world.
Whoa, okay. So there's going to be some people screaming about that line that you just said. So transactional based world, and they're going to say, no, I'm not transactional. I'm relationship. I'm very relational, right? This is a very complex blah blah blah. You know, I have a great relationship with my customer. This isn't transactional at all. What would you say to that person?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's two definitions of transaction. There's a sales transaction where you get money for implementing the service or software, and then there are the service transactions themselves that generate revenue. And the relationship guy is right, because actually transactions don't measure success, but they are an indicator that somebody's interested. Now, I would say what we need to look at from a customer success point of view are two things. One is consumption, and the other is adoption. Okay, so if you look at you know, you can see here, Brian, I can talk for England, and slowly I'm coming back to the subject of KPIs. Finally made my way back.
There we go.
Here we go. Now, consumption. Consumption is the transactions we were talking about, okay? So consumption in a software as a service world, you get paid for consumption, and that's great. And now people are more interested in measuring consumption, at least the billable items. But what we're not measuring in consumption is how the customer is using it. Okay. And that I call adoption. Okay. So this is what people are using, how widely they are using, and how deeply they are using. And I'm using software here.
Yeah.
Okay. And the other thing is who is getting the value. So customer success, we can measure, you know, people measure customer ROI, and the big mistake is to imagine customers only as a business entity. People like Splunk will articulate very well on Marcus Kauke's podcasts about customer success is all about making individuals in the customer successful and understanding the transformation you are bringing to an individual within the organization. And preferably those individuals are also people who are decision makers on your service or software. So adoption is all about how people are using it. So it's who's using it, how are they using it, and why that creates success. Now that's more difficult to measure, and there's a couple of ways of measuring it. For example, of thinking about it. So are people using standard functions that are easily replaceable, or are they using differentiated functions, the functions that actually differentiate you from your customers? Because if people buy your thing and use standard stuff only, then you can be easily replaced. But if they're using differentiating functions, it's more difficult for customers to move away. And in strategy, we use words like sticky solutions and build a moat. And this is really what is meant by sticky, okay, which is people are using functions which are differentiated for their own uses. So they're not using them as a reference. They're using your tools or services for their fundamental workflows and in core value chain operations rather than supporting functions. So you kind of need to measure these things, where your tool is being used in the business, and you know how deep.
Well, let's unpack that a touch. Now, whenever you say core functions versus support functions, right? Or I forget the exact language that you said. I messed that up. But
core value chain functions.
Yeah. So can you give us some examples there? What's one that's just ubiquitous, where we're going to get replaced pretty easily, versus a really specific one where it's a differentiator for us? Can you take us out of the abstract and give us some tangible?
Yeah, let me, the easy ones are, if I'm using a CRM for sales and it holds my pipeline and we manage our sales force using it, right? It's tough to replace, right? But if we're using a tool that helps us analyze stuff, it's on the side. It's not a core. It's not as core. We can replace it. Or if we're using a tool, a HR tool, workforce planning or something like that, it's not as core as it doesn't hold your core of the business. It helps you do it.
Okay, so maybe another way of saying that is, if it's not a vital business function that is going to be extremely painful, high risk to replace, I'm easily replaceable. And so I really better look at, take care of, worry about my customer satisfaction, my customer success, how they're adopting it, consuming it, and who's really benefiting from it. Is that a good summary?
Yeah, I think so. It's a bit, I've mainly been involved in customer success in the software as a service and the fintech world, mm-hmm. where people, and the fintech example I have is a reasonably sized payment processor, so card payment processor. I mean, they support. I don't know if you've heard in the US, banks like Revolut and Starling, they're challenger banks in the UK.
Okay.
And they process the transactions. But actually, being a fairly successful company, it's I would still say it's small to medium compared to the very big players in the fintech space. And what that forces you to do as a small to medium player, with surrounded by big players in the fintech space, is you need to find your where you can live successfully,
right,
amongst the alligators, right?
so one might call that positioning.
Yeah, you need to find your position, and in your position, you need to find your halo customers or your key customers, and you need to find out the reason why your customers will come to you rather than consider going to the big players. And that is all about understanding who your customers are and what they need to do with themselves, their own strategy, and how you enable their strategy. So the example I'm using is somebody who takes small challenger banks or wannabe challenger banks, wannabe fintechs that may evolve into, FX wallets and all of that stuff, who may evolve into challenger banks, and helping them establish minimum viable products and move them, help them grow the number of customers who use their product, help them grow out the capabilities and the features of their product to grow their own communities. So that the fintech I was working with, their interest is actually growing their customers' business. If they grow if they're successful in providing a platform that their customers can help to grow their own business, then actually they win. So customer success became really meaningful then. And you had to say, okay, I'm an FX wallet provider. So we need to attach them to all the FX stuff. We need to give them debit cards. We need to give them nice looking debit cards. We need to give them all the accounts, connection to the banks. We then need to provide them with a path to add functionality to that. And there you get, they can define customer success by what their customers need to grow.
Okay, so it's kind of curious, right?
And you can measure these things. You can measure these things. These things are measurable. It's a roadmap that is measurable.
So we're going to go down to that measurable or path in a second here, but it's really rather incredible. So we're talking about cross-functional, where we're bringing in marketing, sales, deployment, whether you call it operations, what's the word I'm looking for?
Support.
Support, yeah, whatever, you fill in the blank, right? Delivery, right? So you fill in the blank, it's cross-functional. So what you're really saying, if I can make this super simplistic, really determine your strategy to bring the best value to your customers with the least amount of friction through the whole entire buying customer journey. So when they are a customer, make sure that you're absolutely crystal clear on who's going to benefit, making their life ridiculously easy so they can adopt this and consume it. And that consumption is going to be either on a per user per month or per whatever that consumption looks like. But if we make that others focused on the end user client, not necessarily the bigger customer, the bigger company, but the end user of it, we make their life so easy, there would be a revolt if they got rid of us, if they fired us. So that's really utopia. That's what we're trying to figure out here. Is that correct?
Yeah, kind of. Yes.
So kind of. So fill in the blanks for me.
Hey, I say it as I see it, Brian. No. I want to add something. Is really what I should have said then.
Yeah, please.
I'm a farmer's son, so I'm a bit blunt at times.
I like blunt. Let's get it.
No, I see it as two things. Firstly, there's a sales culture change that's needed. Okay. So firstly, sales have got to expand the horizon from I've just got to get as many sales as possible. I've got to get as many different organizations over the line to make my numbers. What we've got to do is we've got to take a longer term view of, you know what, I've got to get the right type of customers over the line who we are going to be able to make successful because they fit what we've got. And therefore I'm going to win because I'm going to have advocates and I'm going to have better retention, right? So there's a little bit of a culture change there on how do we get better advocates and how do we get better retention? Well, we focus on customer success. Sales need to focus on customer success to get those two things, but very often we're pressured into our quarterly targets, and we scrape a few people over the line who don't quite fit.
Well, that's
okay.
what I was gonna. So, if as long as you have your second point written down, I was gonna hit on this one is getting the right customer closed. One, yes, that is a sales issue because we need to hit our number. But two, I would think that that's more of a leadership issue. But then within that leadership, it's leadership of sales, leadership of marketing, leadership of rev ops. Or what are we doing at that top of the funnel to be able to drive down and disqualify bad fit opportunities out so we can ensure that we have right fit? And I'll give you the softball question. Why in the world is that so important to do to make sure that we have the right fit?
Yeah, if you haven't defined what the right fit is, there's no way you can enforce or talk about it. And really, you know, sales think, well, I can't, if I'm a sales leader and they think, well, I can't influence the rest of the organization. You influence the rest of the organization, how I influence future investors, with strategy. You tell the story. You tell the story of the customers that we need to be getting, okay? And whether that's the sales leader who does that, or the CEO, or the marketing person, or the problem is it's not clear who's going to tell this customer success story. When it's so patently obvious that for retention and advocacy, it's needed, and profitability, it's needed, who is going to tell the customer success story? That's problem one, which I don't have an answer for you, Bryan, because actually you're looking at the person who is usually brought in to actually get people around the table and create these stories, right?
Right.
And usually people only bring me in if there's a problem, a big problem, because, you know, you can't afford me otherwise.
Well,
you need to. So that is the issue in the organization. The second issue on my
let me pause
list.
you before you move to that second issue. Is what I was expecting to say, and it came out, was profitability. And I think too many people miss this. I was with an organization way back in the day, and there was such high turnover that we couldn't hit profitability, let alone net revenue targets, because we would sell them and we'd sell one and three of them were walking out the back door. And they were curious as to why in the world aren't we hitting revenue targets? And the reason was we're using our most valuable, because it is so expensive to get net new customers. And if I spend all of that time, money, effort on getting a net new, why in the world would I not then reap the profitability of that net new by retention, satisfaction, cross-sell, upsell? My customer acquisition cost goes down because now I'm getting introductions from these really satisfied people. Shortened sales cycle makes everything better. Profitability goes up, and now I'm attracting other like-minded ideal customers. I mean, it just makes sense to me, and it baffles me. I mean, it seems to me that I'm not alone in this, that I'm seeing this out there. It baffles me why more clients, more companies aren't looking at it this way. So am I all wet on that? Or do I have like this? No,
that is absolutely correct of how it works. And I've coined a phrase in the strategy world to capture this. And I say the financial cart is leading the build the future horse in businesses. So what happens is the financial and operational plan for a business is so strong that you're driven into short-term, quarterly, well, you're almost driven into a functional silo competition with each other, right? You've all got your budgets, you've all got your numbers, you have to make your numbers, you have to make your budgets, you're competing, okay? Mm-hmm. So what happens is all of these things that you're talking about, sales holding off, not selling to bad customers and waiting for the good customers to be good and ready, that takes second place to the numbers, right? Because we're all paid by the numbers. We're not paid on the long, there's only a few people paid on the long stuff, right? So, I mean, the way I like to talk about it is the financial cart is a very strong thing. It sets the culture of the whole business. Now, the build the future horse, which should lead the financial cart, right? Because you have to build a company and then that delivers you money, right?
Right.
Most of the build the future horses are ill or dying that I see. They don't exist because I go in, I go, right, where's your strategy? Nobody's got it written down. Nobody can give it me. People, you know, I get functional presentations. There's no joined up strategy and there's no definition of who the future customers are going to be and why they're the best customers and what the customer success looks like. That will then drive all of these behaviors. So what happens in businesses, Bryan, is that this stuff is not defined and it is not shared by all of the functions. So therefore, it doesn't get done and it's not the priority because the financial plan, the financial and operating plans of businesses are the most powerful things in those businesses, and they have a culture and activities all of their own. Now I come in, high quality interactions, and say, okay, you keep those financial and operating plan activities because they are important. You can't run out of cash, you must make money. But what we're going to do is we're going to work on the build the future horse, and we're going to work together to talk about who our future customers are, who our best customers are, and what they see as success, and what we need to build in terms of a customer journey and experience to help them deliver that success. And actually, once you start doing that, you start to get functional alignment and you start to get people talking in the right way. But there is no environment, no place where these people have the chance to talk about that. Maybe there's an annual strategy away day at the weekend, but if the US is anything like Britain, they all go in a hotel and get drunk together and play a few rounds of golf, right? They don't really have
team
these
building, right? That's not getting drunk.
Yeah.
That's called team building.
Yeah. So I mean, it amuses me because I used to, you know, do 2-day strategy away days. And you know, the second day you can write the whole bloody day off, you know, because they're all hungover.
Yeah.
You know, and that's when you come together and build a plan together, and you're going, well, how good is this plan? They're all drunk.
100%. Now, and I'm really glad that you hit this.
Sorry.
Because I was chomping at the bit to say, it's not an either or, it's a both and. You can't.
It's a both.
Yeah, it has to be a both and. So what we can't say is, well, we can't hit these revenue targets because we don't have this done. Nope, you can't say that. And you can't say, hey, hit these revenue targets in spite of the fact we don't have that. Nope, you can't say that. So it's a both and. Hey, we need to hit these revenue targets. And the way we're going to do that is get everybody talking, get this thing planned out. And if as is state doesn't work, we need to figure out what's future state so it will work. Yeah. I mean, that's too few of us have that both and thinking. It's really either or rather than both and. So I'm really, really pleased that you said, hey, you got to figure them both out.
You've got to figure them both out. You've got to have them. And it is, you know, I call my company High Quality Interactions because I bring these interactions to bring the functions to work together, to work on the cross-functional vision components of either fixing the customer journey or building the future business.
Okay.
And, the first thing we do is we build a story that we all agree on. And, once we've got that, actually the rest is easy. But
Okay.
it's crossing that threshold and realizing we have to set time aside to do that.
All right, so keeping an eye on the clock. Let's do two things. Let's hit actually three things. Let's hit that second piece. What was your second point that you're going to make, and maybe that it came out of our banter.
The second point was that in terms of customer success, sales probably learn a lot about the customer and what success means to them, and then actually the customer's thrown over the wall, and onboarding and support have to learn it again if they see it as their job, or just ignore it totally and just implement a piece of software and then wait for the phone not to ring.
Right.
So there's a disconnect that,
so we really need to work on that handoff.
yeah, we're throwing away our opportunity.
Okay. Now, you keep, and I want to get to KPIs here in a second, but you keep coming back and saying strategy. I think a lot of people are going to say, well, that's too mumbo jumbo. That's too wishy-washy.
Yeah.
So help me tie in. Whenever you're saying strategy, I'm thinking, what's your 1 year, 3 year, 10 year, walk me through how you're saying strategy, how you're using it with customer success, please.
Yeah. I mean, the first thing on, the strategy, there are several horizons, as you indicated. The 10-year is the big value vision and who do we want to be. That's all about who are we, who do we want to be. But there is a 3-year, which actually turns that who are we into tangible, talk aboutable objectives.
Right.
And talk aboutable objectives that are different from where we find ourselves today. So you can have the conversation. You can't have the conversation, who do our customers need to be in 10 years? That's too abstract. But you can in 3 years. You say, right, these are our customers today. Who are our customers tomorrow? And that gives you the chance. And in fact, when I build strategies with private equity businesses, smaller private, between 5 and 100 million pound turnover revenue, the first thing you do is you look at who their existing customers are. And every time I find that there are segments of the customers upon which success will be built, and there are also segments of customers who are fucking pains in the arse, right? We hate them, they hate us, they're drains on our resources, they don't say nice things about us, and actually they are not people we should be doing business with, but they're just people we got on board because we needed to get some business and some sales and
we needed the revenue.
Yeah, we needed the revenue. Now, when you're making strategy and you go to the customers who we serve today, and then you go 3 years out and you say, which of these, this customer segment, will it be the same, lower, will it grow? And you will find always there are about 6 segments and 2 or 3 of them are the future. Then you say, well, okay, why are these people our future? And then you get into those success components. Well, these are the people who are trying to do X and Y, and they're in this stage of their development, and this is what they need. And they need somebody, then our software or our service brings them that, and the way we do it, they really like it. And then you actually get into that success conversation. And
okay. So I was missing that. That was a missing piece. Whenever I think strategy, I think internally, right?
Yeah.
What's our strategy? But what you're doing is you're flipping that around, which is really wise. Yeah. I'm looking at this from what is my customer strategy, or what's my customer success strategy?
Yeah.
Who is the customer? Because whenever we help people hire salespeople specifically, what most times people don't do is they don't consider the buyer's journey. They don't consider the maturity of the market. They don't consider the complexity of the project. And so they think a salesperson is a salesperson is a salesperson. They look at it inwardly as opposed to from the other end of the table. So I was absolutely missing that. You're doing the same thing from strategy. once, and let me try to tie this in, make sure if I'm connecting the dots here. So once I then figure out my customer journey, where they're going to be in 3 to 5 years from now, start to read the tea leaves. Obviously, it's not going to be crystal clear, but I can anticipate trends and all that good stuff. Then once I do that and identify that, bring out the customer journey, figure out what the friction points are, how to de-friction those, how to get all of our interdepartmental or our different business functions to work properly. Once I have that identified, then I flip on the other side and say, okay, if that's true, what's our internal business strategy to execute this plan? Is that kind of summing that all up?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because there's what you just described there is identify your core customers and what you have to do to win, to grow them. And I want to just add something on there, which is and this is always the case, there are always referenceable or halo customers that other customers look to and go, God, if those people are doing business with these guys, then I should at least have a look at them. Okay. It's more noticeable in smaller private equity businesses because I go in and I go, well, okay, here's your segments. Who are your 6 referenceable customers? The 6 customers that everybody else will respect. And if you write about your successes with them, you'll get attention. And people then, and they don't know. Well, you've got to go and get them because your next 40 customers are down to those next 6. Your 6 referenceable customers will generate 40 or 50 or 100 customers. Okay.
Got it.
So for me, it's very clear. But I'm a non-salesman, and also it's easier for me because I come into these businesses with a blank sheet of paper and I don't know what they do. So I'm not obsessed with, for example, software businesses. Oh, look at our platform. It's great. It's got these features. And I'm going, I don't care who wants it.
Yeah, that's
right?
what we should do in sales too, by the way.
Yeah, I don't care who wants it. Why do they like it? Right. And what? Because once I've figured out who wants it and why they like it, then we can look back at ourselves and say, well, what's stopping us? Right. And then we look at the customer journey and you go, well, marketing, we're not actually communicating to them effectively. We're not engaging them in sales correctly. And actually, when we make a pig's ear of onboarding them and we don't measure success with them, we don't actually accompany them. So then you go, okay, well, we know who we're aiming at. We know what they want. We know what we're doing wrong. Then you look at what should we do? And people make a big thing about strategy, as if it's a big academic thing, right? But you look at entrepreneurs and you look at turnarounds, and I look at, when I go into big corporates, bandwidth for change. So when I look at strategy, I know my outcome is, what are the 5 things you guys are going to do together in the next 18 months that will put you in a significantly better position to achieve your 3-year goals than where you are now, right? Because I know it's no more than 5 things, because there's only 8 of you in the senior team, and then you've got your key lieutenants. You're busy doing the day-to-day business. I can't load on 50 new projects, right?
Correct. Yep.
Because otherwise we're going to be living in failure with those projects. I'm going to force you as a team to tell me those 5 things, to tell me as a team and agree on those 5 things and commit to those 5 things that are going to put you in a significant position. They will never take you significantly better position. They will never take you all the way there, but they are going to move the needle. They're going to change the game. And then we can go and communicate that to the organization. And the organization is going to go, hey, these guys are actually talking more authentically to us now, because they're not pretending they're going to make the perfect business now, but they're committing to do 5 really good things that I can see will make a big difference. And I'm more likely to believe them.
Absolutely. Okay.
So,
now, Son of a
Sorry.
gun, no, we're good. I love that, right? So, and definitely check it out. I mean, get those ideas from whether Traction EOS or Scaling Up for an Harnish or hanging out with Gary Mitchell here. Whatever it is, focus on those 3 to 5 critical things per quarter. You can only do so much, like you said, over 18 months. So those 18-month critical projects, you got to break down into bite-sized pieces on a quarterly basis and make sure that you're doing it. So I absolutely wholeheartedly couldn't support you more on that. However, that said, we're running out of time. So let's get to the KPIs. What are some of the KPIs that I should be looking at? How do I measure this? I don't even know where to start. Help.
Yeah, the first thing is to define customer success, but then to have a framework. And I've been working with a VP of sales in Europe of a big American company, kind of new company, which is on retail sales enablement or growth. And we developed a framework. So it's called ACE, ACE, Adopt, Consume, Expand, right? And actually the guy I'm working with said, no, I'm having PACE. So pipeline of real prospects. I win them, I go into adopt, I get people on board, I go into consume when the customer is realizing value and success to get to ROI, and then I go into expand, where I actually deliver expanded services and products into the customer, sometimes called upsell, to increase their level of ROI. And what we simply have done is put those on a chart with vertical columns with a P, an A, a C, an E, and we've listed a set of tick boxes in each, set of things we can see in each customer that prove, have we got the right guys in the pipeline? So these are characteristics of our target customers. Have they adopted? Well, we've implemented it, the stakeholders, there's a set of things in there. Are they consuming? So how do I measure that? Have I got visibility of it? Is the customer measuring it? Am I able to measure it through our platform? Are they consuming? And then expanding, which are the logical extension products? Now, this is where that is tailored to the customer, the expansion, because the extension products and services are not for everybody. So you measure the appropriate ones. But what this gives you is the chance to measure the value or the customer success or the customer value for every single customer. And then you can plot them on a chart. And you can plot your customers about where they are. So are they in the pipeline? Are they adopting? Are they consuming? Are they expanding? And what is their level of adoption, consumption, of expansion, according to how many of those boxes that you've ticked? Yep. Okay. So, and that's a kind of maturity.
Okay. So I'm going to dive down a little bit more deeply on it. I'm going to skip over pipeline because that's really stage gate management, checklist manifesto. I'm going to skip that.
It's also defining your target customer. So what are the attributes of your target customer?
Right. And I would hope that you would have had that already at the top of the funnel, the ICP, all that stuff. So I'm going to assume that's already done. Now let's talk about adoption. What are some specific KPIs that I want to look for within adoption?
Well, look, the adoption is more or less this is about the have you installed your software, right? Are they using it? How many users? Have they got a small amount? Have they got users on board? Are the stakeholders bought into it? Is it integrated with the rest of the environment? Okay.
Now,
so there are things.
How are you measuring that though?
Well, you can measure it with number of users. You can measure it with whether your onboarding is complete. You can measure it whether the key stakeholders on the onboarding have signed it off and agreed. What you do at the end of adopt is you agree what consume means, right? Okay. So you agree customer success. So it's rather like the stage gate of the sales, is you agree the contents of the next stage. at the, I mean, I've stolen it off the stage gate of sales, you know, because you basically say, look, you've got a stage gate for sales, put one in for customer success.
Got it.
That's
So
all I'm saying.
adoption is really, maybe another way of saying adoption is implementation, and then consuming is what others might call adoption. So let's talk about the KPIs
Yeah.
of consume.
Yeah. Yeah, I just realized that the example I gave you at the head of the call actually is cross purposes with this one I've worked on with my client. And I'm
Okay.
I've only just realized that. That's how bright I am, Brian.
See that?
So the things I talked about in adoption earlier are in consumption. So this is what are they using? Where are they using? So you've got things like seats and transactions, they're consuming, right?
Okay.
But actually it's the quality of consumption that we need to get at, because the quality of consumption, is how we measure stickiness. So that will be, how are they using it? In what way are they using it? You know, are they using the differentiating functions? And the other thing on consumption is how they measure success in their words. So the people I'm working with, this is sales margin increases on retail lines, okay, that are using the tool. So it's customer, in consume, you add customer success in the customer's own words, because the customer doesn't give a rat's ass about retention and doesn't give a rat's ass about stuff that you care about. But if you actually measure things the customer cares about, that opens the way for you to have a customer success conversation with the customer. So you can define them in adoption, you can define them in the sales process, and you can continue to engage with the customer on metrics that are important to them. And the secondary thing that drives out is during the consume stage, you can actually work with the customer. If you're measuring their success in their words, you can engage them on creating case studies and marketing that customer success, which can actually enhance your building of your sales funnel.
Got it. Now let's take this and put some application maybe in a non-SaaS, non-technology type play. I would think that the same process would align, because this is process, process and methodology. I would think that you would be able to put this to product, put this to a service. It might be a little bit more difficult to, especially in a service, identify, adopt, and consume. But I would think that if you thought through it, that same methodology could apply.
Yeah, I'm absolutely positive about that. And the reason I am is because my early experience with transformations is with big retailers. And what are retailers trying to do? They're trying to sell you one thing, but also to sell you other stuff.
Right.
Retailers and retail brands, they're trying to actually sell a story and sell success and define success in terms of the brand. And they're trying to actually expand the number of articles you own and the number of times you visit their retail store. So it's defining what success means to your customers, I think, goes down to individual customers buying individual items. Yeah. Because actually, if you're an outlet and you're a Home Depot or something, then you want repeat purchases. You measure repeat purchases.
Yeah.
But you have to define how purchasing from you contributes to that customer's success or well-being. Do they think they've got a bargain? Do they think they've bought the best thing? Do they think they're safe and secure because your after-sales service is so good? How do you contribute to their well-being? It's a great thought process, whatever you sell.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I love methodology, right? Because no matter what you're doing, you can align that methodology. You just need to do some tweaks and changes and adjust a few things up, but ultimately it's the same methodology throughout. So son of a gun, we're winding down on time here. So let's rapid fire this. I mean, based upon your experience, Gary, what are maybe some of the biggest challenges or mistakes that you've seen others make that you can share with us so we can avoid doing those same mistakes?
Well, this is a very long list, and it's how to select, isn't it?
Just pick the
Um,
biggest one.
no, I think it's something we touched on, is that we haven't got a clear vision of our um, who our target customers are and what makes them successful, and that, just having that helps people talk, because if sales and the other functions are talking about customers and we know it's a core customer, we'll have a different conversation. That if we know this customer isn't a core customer, it's a pain in the arse, we'll make different decisions and different have a different dialogue.
Yeah. Well, and the funny thing is, I'm guilty of this, by the way, but I see this time and time again, especially with a number of clients, is we're not willing to do the hard work of thinking. We're so busy being busy that we won't slow down in order to speed up. We won't slow down to do the hard work of thinking, that deep work, to be able to speed up and scale up without having our wheels fall off. So I couldn't agree with you more on that one. Okay, your best business hack, whether it's around talent, how to hire it, that talent management, sales development, whether from a marketing or whatever the case, in this instance, customer service or scaling up of the business. One sales hack or one hack for us, please.
Yeah, I mean, it's to do with what we talked about before. People don't make the time, and actually, what I do for businesses, 50% of the value I bring is actually putting time in the diary to actually have conversations about these things.
Yeah.
And if there is not time in the diary, and there is not a facilitator who can help functions who don't usually talk about these things, and don't really know how to start talking about these things, then the conversations don't happen and they get postponed, and then they never happen. And then we live in we're having the same old conversations about the detail forever.
Yeah.
So I would say, if you want to change things, start the conversation, build some shared view, shared beliefs about what good customers are, and what they believe is success means, and then how we have to be configured as a business to be able to do that well.
Got it.
And that's not that difficult. People think it's massively difficult and we need to do a lot of research. No, knowledge is in your business. The knowledge is inside your business. It's happening every day. Just get a room. Well, you can't now, it's COVID, but get a break, get a Zoom room, and get some structure and start to have these conversations, and you'll be surprised on what you agree on.
Yeah, you already have it. You get a good facilitator, and you already know it, so you're already doing it. Resources that you might recommend, whether books, podcasts, guides. How in the world can we get as smart as you on customer success?
I operate from Patrick Lencioni's oh Christ, what's it called? One of his books.
5 Dysfunctions of Team.
No, the one on organization health. What's that called? I had it then and it went out of my head. It's very good. It's very good. Look down his list.
Not Death by Meetings.
No, it's the one that brings it all together, and he introduces the concept of organization health. And organization health is all about having shared focus and shared purpose.
Son of a gun! I have that in my library queue. So
I've got it over here. I've got it over here on my. I can't find it. The wife nicked it again. I don't know where it's gone.
Well, I'll tell you what. So let me ask you this one, and I'll look it up. What's the future hold? What trends do you see coming down the pike?
Yeah, that's a difficult one. I mean, I don't know why I'm speechless on this. I'm working with a $2 billion company on strategy at the moment, and it's all about the 9 trends that are hitting fintech companies. And I'm going, now I'm speechless. Look, COVID has changed everything. We all need a new plan, right? Now, are we going to plan the same way as we built the old plan, or are we going to do it differently? And I would propose that we do it differently, looking outward rather than inward first. So I would look outward at the customer and try and define our future customers in 3 to 5 years and talk about them and almost turn them into a persona. Who are they? What are their concerns? Role model, talk their language. And I think, you know, I'm in fintech and the smaller companies are doing this. The small companies are actually identifying individuals to sell their service to and understanding about their lives. And if we did more in larger companies of actually understanding the individuals we were doing a great job for and understanding why that was, I think everything's going to get more personal, is my really long-winded answer to your short question.
I agree with that. I mean, I'm already seeing it. Everything is changing because it's so noisy out there. How do we differentiate? And it's not speaking louder, speaking more often about your differentiators. It's really showing it and looking at it from your buyer's perspective. So couldn't agree with that more. Was it The Advantage by Patrick Lencioni?
It was The Advantage, and it just went out of my head in a minute.
There we go. He has some great stuff. I was just talking a little bit earlier about his other book, Getting Naked. So love it, love it, love it. All right. Oh my gosh, I'm getting all choked up. I'm so excited over here. Hey, so Gary, who should reach out to you? How should they do it? And why should people reach out to you here?
I'm on LinkedIn, Gary Mitchell LinkedIn, and I'm on, if you do Gary Mitchell LinkedIn Strategy or Gary Mitchell Program Rescue, then you'll get me. Yeah, why should you reach out? I will ask people one question. If you're looking at transformation and you're not excited, why are you not excited? Because transformation should be, by definition, moving to a better place. And that should be exciting. So the only two reasons why you are not feeling excited is because you haven't defined that better place well enough to be excited about it, or you are worried about your organization's ability to move to that better place, in which case you probably need me, because I do both of those things.
Love it. All right. Hey, everyone. I can't thank you enough. We got a lot of stuff out of this. Let's practice pace. Let's look at it from our buyer's perspective. Let's really understand our buyer's journey. And from that, we can ensure that they are going to be raving fans for us, shut down or really reduce the cost of our customer acquisition and make our life easier. So those are all the reasons, my sense, of why we should really focus in on that customer success. Really appreciate your time and insights here, Gary. A lot of fun. Appreciate it. Remember, gang, it's not knowledge, it's application of this knowledge. Get after it, do something, have some fun. Help the community out, would you? Be good entrepreneurs. See you, everyone.